Hello friends, I thought I'd go live with you today and do a little sharing about our human experience and electromagnetic energy. There's a couple topics that I want to specifically speak with you about today, but the first one is a key astrology energy that's going on. And what that is the activation of Generation X. So Generation X begins in 1965 and then it goes on for several years. And right now Pluto is activating Generation X in a very interesting way. And you can see it with all the stepping up that generation is doing in the various disasters, situations, events that are ongoing at this moment. So how is Pluto activating this generation, Generation X? It just began a forward direct square to Sedna. Now, it's square Sedna for this generation, Generation X. It's trine Sedna in the outer energies, so in the transits sort of in the sky in Western astrology. But Pluto is activating Generation X right now because it's squaring where Sedna was when this generation was born, right at the start of 1965 and going forward. And Sedna is going to be squared by Pluto for Generation X for the next several years. So what does this mean? Sedna is essentially the Persephone story. It's an Eskimo myth, okay, of the goddess of the sea, Sedna. I have many videos, including the first astrology videos that I have in my astrology playlist where I delve deeply into the story. But suffice it to say, she was thrown overboard by her father, sank to the bottom of the ocean, drowned and came back up. And as Pluto is squaring Sedna for Generation X, it's causing this generation to rise up off the bottom of the ocean, to get out of their complacency, to activate them out of past apathy. It's causing them to pay attention. And this is a very, very potent energy. Of course, because Pluto came back one last time, this has happened before, right? It's like Pluto was revving the engine for Generation X. But this last square is super potent. Why is that? We're in the beginning of a new month. Well, we're most of the way through, not in the beginning, but we're in a beginning energy, a new month, a new moon energy. So the new moon for this month was October 2nd, and the full moon is the 17th. Okay, so I'm recording this on October 13, 2024. And so how Pluto is activating and creating the energy for Generation X to kind of rise up and do something in this third activation is this. As it moves off of 29 degrees, right? Generation X had Sedna at 28 in the last few seconds, essentially 29 degrees. As a major body like Pluto moves off, it creates energy. A square that's having a major body move off the square creates energy. And in the new moon phase, it activates us to do something. Now, not only has it been a new moon phase, but we've had 4 X-class flares. We had a solar eclipse at the new moon, and now this Pluto activation of the initial square. okay? Because in 65, when Generation X, like that's the starting date, Sedna was roughly at 29, okay? 28, 50, 55, 49, in there. Now, as it moves off the activation of the generation of X, all right, it also applies. So the first year of the generation is being activated, which activates the entire series. Some people from Generation X are having that square apply, and that causes them to feel the pressure. But with the new moon energy, the X-class flares, and the so new moon, X-class flares, and the solar eclipse, for Generation X, this is an 18-month story. Get up and do something. Like, get started if you haven't already. And like I said, because this is the final pass and the move off and then into Aquarius starting November 20th, it's like the starting gun at a race, right? We're getting going. So that is a really major effect on Generation X, and I'm really excited about it. Now, here's the deal. Here's Pluto, okay? So Pluto is the cup on the cross. And in my most recent live stream for my members, I discussed how that aspect of the Pluto energy works and how, in effect, it can be essentially seen as the Holy Grail holding the sun, right? But is the sun captured, or is it shining and about to come out of the cup? If we look at the sun in the center as the soul, right, about to rise out of the cup and shine, it's the reclaiming of our mastery. It's the reclaiming of the truth of who we are. It's the reclaiming of our soul. It's the reclaiming of the lost pieces, right, of who we are. Reclaiming of the effects of trauma and so on. Again, key themes for Pluto squaring Sedna. But at the new moon, Lilith was at the degree of the sun and the moon. The elevation of Lilith, who is not well understood, but the elevation of Lilith is to reclaim our lost parts and pieces. She's most known in writing for ragefulness, for the dark energy of Lilith. And she is a dark goddess. Let's accept that as a fact. So all of that can be a part of her energy. When it's stretched to the extreme, that actually becomes something new. I'm actually doing a teaching on that later today. The elevation of Lilith, once she's tired of raging, once she's tired of living as who she really isn't, Lilith has the capability to reclaim her lost parts and pieces of her soul. And she does that one by one. And it's the tenaciousness that she has, her desire to be free, her desire for individuation, to be who she truly is, to actually reconnect with the divinity that she is, that motivates her to collect all these parts and pieces. And as she does that, she slowly evolves into new archetypes. And what is that archetype? It's Venus. Venus, who is activating Chiron, our mastery of our woundings, right? At the new moon as well. So you see, these are the general energies that we are sitting in at the moment and that are going to have a fine tuning at the full moon. But they're the energies of the whole month and the activation we all get for the next 18 months. What is the timing of that? So 18 months, the first 9 months of that is like a new moon phase. So from now, right, the beginning of October through the start of the Lunar New Year at the end of March, that's the first 6 months. It's actually an initiation phase for the energy as we wind up our hopes and dreams for the lunar year that started August 8th, 2024. So what does that do? The basket of energies that I've just described, and the activation of Generation X in particular, is ramping up to be a major factor for 2025. And it will come online strongly at the lunar month, at the lunar new year, starting March 29, 2029. 2025 at the new moon, sorry. 2029. Huh. Yeah. Because Uranus is going to conjunct Sedna somewhere between 26 and 29. It might be 2028. Anyway, yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's the first topic of the live stream. Pluto is activating Sedna, and the prep and rollout for those energies, right, that have been activated by the solar eclipse at the new moon are going to come in powerfully at the lunar new year for March 2025. It's going to be pretty amazing, because this is the reclaiming of our lost history, of our heritage, of our soul, of our connection with God, with the divine. And the more that we do this at an individual level, the more it rolls out from us. Okay, so now let's talk about the Schumann Resonance, and let's talk about the electromagnetic energies that have occurred from the sun, initiating this lunar month. So all of these, the Schumann, the astrology, the solar energies, they are all electromagnetic energies, and they affect us and our human energy field. Why? Because our human energy field is an electromagnetic phenomena. We emit electromagnetic energy. So, yeah, I'm going to talk. There's another topic there, right? Because many people are concerned about EMF radiation. There's all of these devices now that are being, there are all of these devices that are being sold to dampen EMF energy. But what many people don't realize is that your energy field is electromagnetic energy. So when you purchase devices like this, or when you set your intentions, it's very important to clarify the frequency range that you're talking about. Because, you know, who wants to dampen their own field, right? I don't. I mean, maybe you do, and if you do, that's okay, for whatever those reasons are. Okay, so that'll be a topic for another video, how to do that. So the sun, as I mentioned, emitted those 4 X-class flares in the week and a half since the new moon on October 2nd. One of them was before the new moon. And we've had an incredible CME expansion into the atmosphere, right? The electromagnetic energy from the sun came into the atmosphere. If you look at my first live stream, you will see that I described how this energy works years ago. It's a good teaching if you want the basics of it. So it's interesting because there's some scientific data that was sent around, and I reposted it on X. So you could see it on my X account, Susan Inspired. It's in the last few posts. But essentially, what it described by Clarity Sage, thanks Clarity for putting that out, was how the ground soaks in the geomagnetic energy that has been emitted into the Earth energy field from the sun. Well, who do you think also absorbs that geomagnetic energy? We do, right? All those auroras, the energy that caused that, we are not separate from that. And we are not separate from the geomagnetics of the planet. We're not separate from the magnetism. We are not separate from the electricity. It's obvious to know that because since you were a child, you probably have gotten electric shocks, putting on your socks in the winter, or watched the electric shocks move through woolen bedding, right? Or cotton bedding, or your own pajamas. You can see the shocks moving around. Were you hurt by them? Well, in general, no. I mean, sometimes you can get an electric shock, and I'm talking about just being a human, walking around, picking up extra electricity in the body and then emitting it. So I'm not talking about doing dangerous electrical things or being struck by lightning, okay? I'm talking about, general everyday human experiences that we have. So the electricity moves through us. It's part of what fires our nervous system, right? Our neurons. We are electromagnetic beings. And the more that we understand this, the more that we're going to have dominion over our lives and when it comes to how we use and express our human energy. It's pretty cool, actually, when you think about it, because, the outer world has showed us that EMF energy can be programmed, right? And can be used for many things. Well, as the master of your own body and energy field, with the authority of the living soul that you are from the divinity that you are, expressing outward, from that level of authority, which requires, a little bit more than the simple sentences, but the mind has to understand the framework, right? Before it allows you to step off into that direction or create that in your field. So because we've been shown in the outer world how programming is possible, right? Through the use of computers, through the use of Wi-Fi and various other inventions, we can program our own field. Now, how do you do that? Just like a computer developer or software developer writes commands into code, right? In code, you use the code of your own system. And you do that by commanding it within you. The spoken word, you can do that simply by musing and speaking to yourself. I'm describing a much more complicated process more simply. And I'm doing that. I'm describing how to program your energy field more simply because the key concept is important to get at first. Yeah, the key concept is important to get. Hold on one second, I'm going to put my focus on. There we go. Okay. All right, so, yeah. So here's what I want to say. Yeah. I have an agenda for this. And so right now what we're on is programming the human energy field. And we're going to tie it back to the Schumann Resonance. So in my view, the Schumann Resonance is an emission, both in the atmosphere, but of collective consciousness of human beings through our electromagnetic energy fields. And that's why I set up the discussion to talk about that first. So what does that mean? It means that potentially, because this is my theory, the Schumann resonance, right? It reflects back to us bands of frequencies. These bands of frequencies are, they're in frequency ranges. And it's my view that those frequency ranges represent slices of human reality. They represent our living environment that we perceive as human beings. Now, they also represent the Earth because they include 7.83 hertz, which is the natural frequency of the Earth. There's always a green energy band on the space observing system charts of the Schumann Resonance. There's always an energy band there. Does it pulse? Yes. Okay, sometimes it's stable for a longer period. So what am I saying? It's my view that we are emitting this in some potentially large portion of the energy and images on the chart are from us, are about the human experience. And that's why I have called for a long time my work, the human experience of electromagnetic energy and our human experience. And that's why I like to focus on the individual. Why? Because those of us who are activated and turned on, right? And when I say turned on, I mean from the level of the divinity that you are, however that expresses. There are many people that are turned on, right? They're being who they are, and they wouldn't say that it's from God necessarily through them, from the divine through them. But if you're operating at the level of your true passion, in my view, that's what that is, your passion, your inspiration. And it's what supports you bringing that out into the world. It's what makes your hopes, dreams, and then actions, right? Faith in action, taking that into action. It's what creates a more enduring effect. And I'm making this video the morning that Elon Musk, you might have seen it, returned his rocket to Earth, and I'm going to use non-technical words, his gizmo caught it. It was the most amazing thing. I have reposts of this on my X account at Susan Inspired. But it was just stunning, and in the background, you can hear the entire crowd. I don't know how many people were there. They were across the water from the landing pad. And I've been to that area. It's pretty far distance. You can't actually get to where the rocket's being launched if you're a regular person. But this incredible construct, right, that they had built, it caught the rocket. And this is what I'm talking about. This level of inspiration, ingenuity, innovation, where does it come from? In my view, it comes from the divinity within us. So back to the Schumann Resonance, right? Because all of this relates. Are there human technologies or potentially other technologies emitting that can be picked up on the Schumann Resonance? Of course. Are there external energies outside Earth that can be picked up by the Schumann Resonance? I'm going to say yes, right? Because when they emit into our atmosphere, if they come into the level of resonance of human beings, where we operate, then yes, we would be able to maybe not, always visually or mentally or physically perceive them, but we can. Let's just accept that, right? There are many, many people. Thanks for being here, Ren. That's so great that you're here. Thank you. Ren's a moderator. There are many people for years and years and years, just go back, 10 years where over the time that people have really been looking at this as regular individuals constantly, right? We've all commented. There's been many, many, many discussions about physical symptoms, but there are many people who have written in comments or contacted me to talk about their personal perception of the energies, and from these, what I have learned is that people hear sounds. They might see energy. These aren't the ways that I perceive it, but that's what people have told me. And they're very accurate because they'll message me before it happens. And then something happens. So, after you get that many data points, anecdotal observations, it becomes data points, doesn't it? Yeah. So we are alive with our environment. That's what I want to say. And I think if you're watching this, many of you or most of you know that. So what's happening? What's going on? The extended CMEs, right? The extended geomagnetic storms at very high KP levels, right? Very high measurements of electromagnetism. We were fine, right? Human beings were able to survive that, do okay with that, do well with that. And I think that there are some hints here for our capabilities as humans for our future. The thing is that we have to be able to imagine them. Imagine that there are these possibilities. What that does is it opens up the floodgates of the mind to allow for creativity. Why is that? Because the Creator granted us free will choice. And so if your mind is closed, you won't be able to perceive it at all, and you're probably not on this live stream. So how would that relate with the Schumann resonance? It would relate in how we express that outwardly. But there were also a lot of waves of energy on the Schumann resonance, since the new moon. And when I saw these images, the biggest thing to me in terms of the visual image that I saw was people gathered together in great big crowds, expressing together in a positive way, And so that's why at the beginning of the live stream, I talked about the activation of Generation X, right? So the Schumann resonance, how would it reflect our reality? The easiest way to think about this is the guy sitting at the computer in the movie The Matrix, the first one. And, they're sitting at the computer and all the, alien looking writing, right? All the images, all the hieroglyphics are pouring down the computer stream. And in the movie, they discuss that the operator, understands what those images represent. Well, if you could expand your mind to know that the frequency ranges could be a slice, right, of what we live in as humans, and several frequency ranges together would represent our electromagnetic environment at 11:44 my time that we perceive as living humans. So this is what I want to show you. I want to show you an example, right? Okay. So if we were to take the spectrum and illustrate it with this pie chart, we could say that, hold on one second, let me finish here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. I think I'm going to end up doing 16. Okay. Hold on one sec, okay? Yeah. Okay. And, oh, this is so great. I'm really excited about this because I'm going to link two concepts together for you. It's going to be awesome. Hold on. Yeah, it has to be 369. That's what it has to be. Yeah. So 6, 2 is 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I'm just doing it right now, live, because I've talked about this before in some of my videos, but I want to really share it with you right now because this is a cool way to illustrate the concept. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Okay, so here we've got 12. Here we've got 4. Here we've got 16. Okay, this is awesome. All right, so let me just look at the comments for a sec. Don't worry about being late. You can replay it. Okay, here we go. So the Schumann resonance, I'm gonna illustrate the frequency ranges with a pie chart right now, okay? So if we think about the Schumann resonance and the 4 frequency ranges that show in the space observing system chart, Now, we can call them by their colors, which would be green, red, yellow, and white. We can call them by their Hertz ranges, right, which is around 7 to 8, around 18 to 21, around 23 to 27, 28, and around 13 to 15. Those are pretty narrow ranges when you think about how wide the electromagnetic spectrum is, right? Okay, so here they are in a pie chart. So this is our perceived reality, and we call it the Schumann Resonance. Isn't that cool? Now, let me give you an example from another electromagnetic point of view. Okay, now, this is a pie chart with 12 spaces. What are these 12 spaces? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, and Leo, Virgo, and so on. The 12 astrology signs in an electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so are there frequency numbers for these, right, to these ranges? I believe there are. Okay, I don't know what they are because this is my theory, and I don't know how to calculate that or measure it at this moment. Okay, but this is my theory. This is comparable to this. It's simply another way of looking at it. Okay, so astrology, how is that relevant to the Schumann resonance? Well, we all, in some ways, most people think astrology is real. Okay, let's just accept that. Why? I mean, how many people just randomly read their sun sign? Even though when I was younger, I thought astrology was, pardon me, I don't want to offend anybody. I thought it was just silly. Okay, I thought it was silly, maybe stupid. Like, I don't care. I don't believe in it. Really, that's where I was at. So it's shocking that I'm talking about this to you now in some ways. So I didn't think that this was real. Okay, I was in that category. But I've allowed my mind to expand. Not just that, but to me now it's science. Okay, here's the pie chart, right? We're gonna just put them in a pie chart. Here is human reality. You know, and do we equally participate in the resonances, each individual? Probably not. But, you know, same thing with the astrology energies. Do we equally participate in all sets of the 12 signs in our lives? Probably not. So here's how astrology is an electromagnetic energy. The energies of the planets are electromagnetic. They are electromagnetically, in my view, interrelated. The reason that I say that, I'm just speaking from the perspective of an energy intuitive, is I see the electromagnetic grids of the solar system when I put my consciousness there, you know, and I've talked about this in detail in some of my videos, but, you know, they just are electromagnetically on a grid network like everything else. And so there's two ways they influence us, right? By emanating point to point, right? By emanating the energy, and we receive it, especially if we were born in a way that aligns us with those. Like that aligns us with, you know, the sun, the moon, Saturn, Pluto, Venus, whatever it happens to be for you. So, and then the second way that the planetary energies electromagnetically affect us, in my view, is by the emanation through the grids, the electromagnetic grids, which exist between all planets, the sun, and the greater galaxy. That's just how it is. I'm just telling you, there's an electromagnetic grid system. Okay, so our slice of reality, we say, is this, right? You know, the second house is the energies of Taurus, is the energies of Venus. The first house is the energies of Aries, is the energies of Mars. Now, what's interesting is, how does that apply to this? right? So what I'm saying is that in our expressed reality, if we look at it through the astrology, the electromagnetism of that, could it express within this pie chart of the Schumann resonance? Well, I believe so. I believe it can. That's my point of view. That's my theory. Okay? Now, there are more than 4 resonances. I think many people who follow it know that. This is now not on Wikipedia anymore, according to the last time I checked. But there are various sources, because over the years, I just go back and read them again and again. That'll say there's 6 resonances, there's 8 resonances. So I think that, there's a potential issue, which is that relative to, our science, which is in our scientific theories, which is that, I know I'm slowing down to say this. Yeah, it's 40 hertz, right, is the high end of the Schumann resonance charts from Space Observing System, although there are other charts that will show higher, but they are extremely difficult to read. And, the pixels are like, that pie, that's the size of the picture. So it's difficult to read and interpret if you can't actually kind of dig into the data, in my point of view. So 40 hertz is, in the range of gamma brainwaves for the human being. So, at this point, most people understand that the Schumann resonance is also in the range of human brainwaves. Now, early on when I was doing my research on the Schumann resonance and brainwaves, and I was one of the first, if not, I was the first person talking about this that I knew about, okay, on YouTube. But basically, although, scientists have been researching this for a long time, 40 hertz, when I was researching it, what I read was that scientists couldn't understand how our brains functioned at that level. Now, maybe science has progressed since that time. I've done some basic research and haven't found anything new on it yet. That's not to say it's not out there. But if there are resonances that are also higher, if there's 6 or 8 of them, and if they are related to humanity, then the obvious thing is that our brain would be, generating that potentially. And if that's the case, I bet that would mean some pretty amazing things. And it might even start to explain some of the psi abilities, PSI, of humans, some of the abilities that we have for the clairs, as I like to call them, clairaudience, yes, telepathy as well, clairvoyance, and so on. It's a really exciting area and field of questioning, isn't it? It's really fascinating. I'm just so excited. It's welling up within me, for my heart and soul, the potential for humanity, for our future. It's very strong and it's very positive. It's very exciting. If you look at the way that millions of people were praying over the most recent hurricane in Florida. So we had in this last, now I don't remember the exact day and when it occurred relative to the new moon, but a huge hurricane hit the southeast of the U.S., right? Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and in particular really hard hit parts of Tennessee and North Carolina, and maybe a couple of other states. Well, then Hurricane Milton, that was Hurricane Helene, then Hurricane Milton came around to Florida, and people put a focus of prayer there. If you do the search in my YouTube or Rumble, for Susan Inspired Prayer as Directed Energy, you'll see my explanation of the human experience of directed energy and what we are capable of. So some people were praying, some people were meditating, some people were setting intentions, some people were doing their earth, working with crystals and this kind of thing. But it was in the millions, right? Because we all saw what happened in the first hurricane that was really bad, Hurricane Helene, and how terribly the people were affected, the land and everything. And we didn't want to see that again. Okay, that just seemed like it was to me. We didn't want to see that happen to the people in Florida, because the hurricane, when they were first talking about it, was the size of the entire state. And they were talking about, in the news, they were talking about these outer bounds of possibility of what could happen. Of, oh, do we need to add a new category? Oh, the wind speeds could be these crazy, insane levels. So here's the thing. I posted this on X, but what you saw as that hurricane approached the state of Florida, as Hurricane Milton approached, was it would slow, then it would speed up, then it would slow, then it would speed up, then it would slow, then it would speed up. And I know that hurricanes do those things. But when you have millions and millions of people praying, right? It looked to me like there was directed energy, and that's between God and the human, directing the energy and asking for certain outcomes. So prayer is directed energy. People are afraid of DEWs, right? Directed energy weapons. Friends, human beings have the capability to direct energy as well. There's no need for fear when we claim back our human energy capabilities. This is real. And I'm just laying down simple concepts right now, because there's much more to it. But I want to lay down the concepts so that, and outline them for you, because, then it spreads, right? It spreads in our consciousness and we become aware of possibilities. A lot of people buy crystals and they put them on their computer, or they put them on the smart meter to dampen the electromagnetic fields. Well, I don't do that. Why not? That's a lot of work from my perspective. You got to order it, you got to get something and put it up, I'm joking a little. I just wrap the meters in energy, and then I set parameters for that. I program it, right? I program the emissions, transmitting and being received. You can do that as well. We all can, because this is a natural capability of human physiology. Yes, it's a natural capability of our physiology, but it requires consciousness. And consciousness is not intellectual. The singularity that everyone talks about is not about information. Sorry, it's just not. When humans expand consciousness, it does not mean that we gain information per se. It doesn't mean that we need to understand the entire Library of Alexandria or every bit of information that is on the internet. When humans expand consciousness, what it means is, see, the church bells just went off. I don't know if you can hear them. It means that we activate our connection with God. We activate our connection with the living life force that animates us, the flame of the soul, right? Gifted to us in this body temple. It is us, and we are what it is, children of the Creator. Now, Yeah, the bells are just ringing and ringing. They're just ringing and ringing. It's the God consciousness that when you connect with that, what that is for you, the divine, right? And then you live that. You know, you live from your conscience, from that inner intuition, from your spiritual guidance, from your relationship with God, with the divinity that created you, one-to-one with your soul. Be that in the body. That expands consciousness, because I don't need to know the information. Sitting here right now with you, I don't need to know, because my greater self will simply tell me. God is omnipresent, right? That's what they said. God is omniscient. The creator understands what any one particle of energy in the entire universe is doing at any one moment. That is the force that I'm talking about, and that loves you. And when you connect with it, when you have the spiritual awakening, the way that the heart expands and the way that consciousness expands is indescribable. And in my experience, it feels like love. It's the most incredible love that you can ever imagine. So then being in relationship with that and choosing to live in a way that keeps you in relationship with that, and that improves your relationship, and that hones you, right? Because it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that every moment's happy. But for me, every moment is satisfying, or more satisfying than it was before I expanded consciousness. Because consciousness is not just a mental activation, right? The pineal gland, it's a heart activation. And then it becomes even more than that. It becomes a body activation, actually. It's another story. And that's where our electromagnetism, our consciousness, and then our emissions come into play, the Schumann Resonance, right? This is awesome. I feel gaskets blowing everywhere. You know, we're going to have to upgrade our thinking. Well, someone will. Someone will, right? Or they could choose not to. It's up to the individual. So let me go back to this line of thought. Why don't I need to necessarily know all information, right? Why is that not part of consciousness? Because once you activate your connection with divinity, what you find is that you will just know things. You will just know things. And the greatest example of this that I can give you from my life is learning astrology. You know, astrology is actually deeply complex. It's highly mathematical. There are 2,000 plus years of study about it. You know, the astrology in Western civilization that we use is based on the ancient Arab mathematicians and their calculations. Think of the Magi in the Bible. How did they find the birth of Jesus? They used astrology. Their level of understanding was incredible, extreme in some ways. How was that possible? It's another story. But all of this is known, right? It's in the ethers of Earth. It's in the ethers of Earth that include the ranges of the Schumann resonance that are the pie chart of our perceived perception. It's all there. It's all known by the divine. It's all known by the creator, right? See, I know that some people dropped off when I started talking about the creator and God. And that's okay. But it's okay if you don't want to explore that. But if you actually are wanting to expand your consciousness, this is the new territory. Right? This is, the pioneering place. Gosh, it's so exciting. So then how do you know information? Well, I started learning astrology several years ago, and I'm blessed because my teacher has over 40 years experience and spent thousands of hours with me. So really, it's an incredible blessing from God, right, through her. So in 2019, right, my teacher had been teaching me. I had learned enough that I was thinking of adding videos about astrology. And I didn't talk to my teacher about this. I didn't tell her I was going to do it. But what happened was divinity within me said, you need to make a video. You need to do it now for this eclipse. It was the fall, winter of 2019, right before COVID happened. Okay. And I was shaking in my boots to make this video. This is a personal example, a personal story. I was shaking in my shoes because who was I? My human self thinks, who am I to make a video about astrology? Okay, my teacher has been teaching me, but I'm really relatively new to the field at that time. Relative to here I am comparing myself to my teacher with 40 years experience or someone with 20 years experience. But no. Now, my spiritual guidance in this was Archangel Michael. And he showed up to me and he said, make the video. Now, Archangel Michael is the embodiment of divine will. So when I'm communing with that energy, which I have clarified, right, as being of the highest light perceivable to me of what that is as a living human. So when that showed up, when Michael showed up and told me this, here was my choice. Turn away from God's guidance through me expressing, because everything within me said yes to this, resonated with it. So if I turned away from that, what would I be doing? Turning away from God through me, right? I realized that, I knew that, and I said, are you sure? Do you really mean it? You want me to make a video about each of these things? Both of the eclipses and new moon, full moon, whatever. And I got yes. He said yes. Okay. So I made the videos. Those are the videos that I referred to at the beginning of this broadcast, where I said, if you want to know more about Sedna and the goddesses, I came out with all of this information about the goddesses, about Sedna. I went through her whole story. Well, it turned out that 18 months later was, a major time, because solar eclipses express for 18 months. It's all like, I refer back to those videos now so many times. Okay. And now that's years ago, right? That's where I'm in my 5th year of the astrology stuff. And when I'm reading a chart, when I'm looking at an individual's chart or at a moon, right, chart, like a lunar month or some other event, here's what happens now. The planets and the energies that they represent now animate for me. They will give me the information, and that is divinity. That is God's inspiration, right? Pinging that inspiration in me pings what God created, the planets. And I am able to assess the frequency range of expression, just like with the just like I do with the Schumann Resonance. And then I just know. I just know. And then I'll look at the chart, and now I'll tell my teacher, well, this is a quincunx funnel. I've never seen anyone write about it. She's never heard about it. And she's been doing astrology for 40 years. And yet I know that's a thing, and divinity will show, and it's through me. I'm not talking about outside stuff. I'm not talking about entities engaging. No, I'm talking about the divinity that I am, right? It's from within. And essentially, after this has happened over 5 years, finally this year, well, I think it started a little before that. It started from one of you guys. I'm teasing. One of you who commented on one of my videos. And I was talking about a particular author in astrology from a few hundred years ago. And I was saying what he wrote and how it was literally what I've been talking about in my videos, like except for applied to astrology. But his approach, when he summarized it at the beginning about, which really didn't talk much about astrology. I literally had been making videos about that topic and writing article after article for years. You know, when I put together all my creative work, it's over 1,000, you know, it's well over 1,000 pieces of content, probably. You know, I don't want to say more, but who knows at this point. It's a lot of content. And I'm not talking about short posts with one word. I'm talking about articles, videos. So one of you said, well, if it sounds like you, now I'm saying this at 12:12 my time, if it sounds like you, maybe, you know, there's a past life relationship there. Forget exactly how you said it. That pinged, when I read that comment, that pinged so resonant with me that I was really quite surprised. Because like I said, growing up, I'll just, you know, no offense to anybody who just absolutely loves this area, but when I was younger, I thought it was stupid. I thought UFOs were stupid. I thought, you know, now it hurts my heart to say that. But I just didn't know. You know, my mind hadn't been open to the concepts. And now I realize that there's at least a couple lifetimes that I've had where I was a master astrologer. Okay. And you know, it's just the most, you know, it feels miraculous. But how did it come about that I learned the information? You know, all of these things unfolded, the personal experience I'm discussing with you. The way that it unfolded was I followed divine impulse guidance through me from the level of my soul. So did my teacher. Okay? Because I said to her, like, how can I repay her for what she did? There's no level of payment that I could make to her for how she taught me. And she said she was guided. And it was an apprenticeship, essentially. And this is what I'm saying. Consciousness is not intellectual. When I look at the charts, I'm able to read the frequency. I'm not saying that studying doesn't help. Of course, I had to study for, like I said, she taught me for thousands of hours. Okay, so I did do that. But when you're talking about a field that people have been writing about for 2,000 or more years, you can't know everything, right? Unless you're, you know, a supercomputer that downloads all that. But there's all this human knowledge that wasn't recorded in a written form for the computer. It's only in the particles of frequency that emit in our environment. Or it's in the memory of the soul, right? Because maybe it was on Earth, maybe it was, well, on another planet, maybe it was millennia ago, like whenever it was, whatever it was, right? The soul, because it's the living flame of the Creator, has access to this. Now, there is an element of mentality in expanding consciousness because the mind is a closed door, right? Until we open it. And this is the whole point. Well, of course, it's way more than this, but why Jesus came to earth. What was one of his core messages? Of course, the golden rule: love your neighbor as yourself. But I am the open door, right? Think about what humanity was like when he came to earth. Consciousness was closed. Love was closed, right? The access to a certain level of relationship with the Creator had been closed off from us for all the reasons that It could be, right? A few more people just dropped off. That's okay. You know, others had come back. Others came back. All right. So here's the mental aspect, right? Because I'm talking about not religion, talking about spirituality. Because just like I said, Archangel Michael is an embodiment. Like a lot of people are okay with angels, but they're less okay talking about God or the Creator. So here's the deal. Archangel Michael, I mentioned, is the embodiment of divine will, security, protection, and so on. Why is that? When you live in alignment with divine principles, when you have a relationship with the divinity that you are, you're protected by that. Scripture tells us that God puts a hedge around his people, right? And there's a lot more verses about that. So, and that's the whole story of, I think it's Job. Anyway, why is it important to have scriptural references? You know, it's okay for me if they're from the Bhagavad Gita. I just don't know that. I was raised, you know, with the Bible. I was raised with the teachings of Jesus. So that's what I know and that's what I teach from. But Jesus was key. Why? The door was closed. The door of mentality. Consciousness from a mental perspective. A door was closed and an electromagnetic door was closed at that time. Okay, so it's a door present in many ways. So what did Jesus say? I am the open door. Right? That's the door. You know, he said, no one comes to the Father except through me. I am the open door. Well, this works in many ways. You know, first, the mind opening to the possibility of a relationship with the Creator, right? With the Father, with the Creator, just, you know, as Scripture discusses. So that's the free will of the mind. The free will of the mind. Oh, that's not in my reality. You know, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about this in a scientific discussion, right? We can talk about electromagnetic energy. The Creator's not separate from that. The Creator made it all. And there are various, you know, stories of how that rolled out. None of those technically matter. So 2,000 years ago, or whenever it actually occurred, we had a major door opening. What did that do? It allowed the consciousness of humanity to open to the possibility of the relationship with the divinity that you are, a living relationship with your own soul. And that is important to expanding your consciousness. So in a way, the mind can be the cage. That's why I put the door in a sphere. We can only achieve, right, what we can mentally conceive of. I told the story earlier of, you know, Elon Musk's rocket. And the morning that I'm recording this, you know, he created this huge structure. The rocket came in and it caught the rocket in midair. The thing isn't attached to anything. It's just sitting in these clamps. And who ever would have thought about that, right? So once we open the door to our connection with the divine, then new inspiration can come through. And within that inspiration, if we follow it, new information can come through. That's why I gave the personal explanation of me learning astrology. And now I look at the planets and suddenly I'm getting this all this extra information. You know, for quite some time, I was the only person putting out information about Lilith in an elevated state. And that is critical to, you know, it's critical to understand how her energy elevates so that we as women can raise our consciousness and stop being stuck in certain patterns of victimhood and oppression, because we oppress others when we act from that victimized state, like in our rage, right? In our F it, I'm just going to do it, whatever that nasty thing is, you know, that's, you know, if we can come to consciousness about it, then maybe dad won't throw Sedna overboard next time. Because, you know, most people look at the story of Sedna from the victim standpoint, but what if she was endangering the boat? What if she was out of her mind and acting like a raving lunatic? And the father had no choice from his perspective but to throw him over. Why? Because when you are detached from the divinity that you are, here's what happens, okay? And this is why Lilith was always presented as demonic, okay? Now, there are many people who are very attached to understanding Lilith in this way because they have a stake in the game of the energy. I don't need to know about that. I just notice it because I'm observant. Okay, so here's the deal, right? So we have a choice in our lives, okay? So now I'm going to explain the elevation of Lilith. And the reason I'm going to do it is because it relates to, in some ways, to opening the door, okay, of the mind of consciousness. Lilith is in all charts, male and female, right? All the asteroids are in all charts, or the black moon, Lilith, which is a mathematical calculation. So she's key, right, in the current day. And how do I know that? Because Lilith was at the degree of the new moon this month, which is an 18-month influence. So it's worth it to spend the time on this. So as women, or, you know, men expressing this aspect, but I'm going to focus on the woman aspect because let's face it, you know, yeah, I'm just looking at this. Either way, male or female, it goes into the same distortion. So I'm just going to present it how I drew it, but it's accurate for male or female, okay, however you were born. So basically here's Lilith. Here's the heart. Here's the potential for her heart to be covered over. Here's the potential for her to be in inspiration, right? In God, you know, connection with the divinity that she is, living in connection with her soul. These are the possibilities. Well, when Lilith, right, through trauma, circumstance, you know, desire to stay in her rageful state, okay, like for example, yeah, I'm not going to go into that one. All right, but sometimes there's a desire to stay in the rageful state. I'm not going to pick on anyone here. Okay, so here's the elevation. Here's, you know, the downward spiral of Lilith energy, right? That keeps this door closed. Okay, so this is very, very potent because also, okay, here's the star Algol. Okay, this represents the various range of Lilith energy. It's, you know, we just initiated a 2.5-year Mars cycle where Mars conjuncted Uranus, and then a few hours later conjuncted Algol. So these themes are so up right now. That's why I wanted to talk about them. All right, so when you get in that rageful state, you become more susceptible to the snake. You know, to Eve listening to the serpent, you know, to invasion into your human energy field, okay? So then you're living with some kind of parasite in your field and you don't know how to get rid of it, or it's constantly coming at you like this, okay? And you're like, I'm under attack. You know, we've all been there, right? But here's the thing. When in that state, rather than turning towards self-healing, through various techniques of energy, prayer, meditation, centering, doing energy work, where you recover, okay, the elevated state, you recover your heart, you recover, the soul that you are. That's the elevation of Lilith, as I mentioned earlier. But instead, you go with the anger. You go with expressing that. And then what happens? Now this is Lilith, okay? You can't even see her heart, right? It's just a big circle. It's just a big manhole cover over the heart. This is all an electromagnetic expression, by the way, because now Lilith has built up a huge cover of energy in her field because she was like, no, I'm not doing it that way. F you, right? She's angry at God, whatever it happens to be. And she creates an electromagnetic energy that covers her heart. Lilith is not the only way to do this, but it's up right now, so it's a good example, okay? So basically, she covers her heart, and she's pretty sad, okay? But she expresses that as rage or other, from sadness to anger. And then she has a lot of fears, right? She has a lot of fears. Why? Because, fear in its ultimate state is not just disconnection from God and the pain of that. It's the experiences that we have because we achieve that disconnection. Good job, right? Fully, you disconnected as much as you could, and then here I did draw the heart. The heart's covered over. And then instead of putting your consciousness back to the heart where you could possibly heal it, or you could possibly heal yourself, you kept saying, no, I'm going to text you another angry message, which literally has been happening as I am giving this live stream. That's why I had to put my do not disturb on. I'm going to text you another angry message. I'm going to text you another. I'm going to text you. I'm not going to go pray. I'm not going to go meditate. I'm not going to go do energy work. I'm not going to set intentions. I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm going to put my focus there at the very edge. At the very edge. And when I do that, I distort the true expression of my divinity. I use the divine force to do that. Why? Because it animates me, whether my heart is covered over or not. Now, unconsciously, I'm using divinity to create the negative. Now, this is why the news was creating all this drama. And potentially it was real. Okay, they really thought maybe that it could be a category 6, a whole new category with all this wind and destruction, right? Or was that an offer for us to do this? Be in fear. Come, create with me over here, okay, says the parasite. Let me wrap myself around you and tell you what to do. Okay? Keep your consciousness here because that's where you can connect with me. Right? Because when we are here, the parasite can't even approach us. It cannot even approach us. Oh, well, I went through this experience and I went through that experience and it justifies my anger. It justifies me doing this to that person. It justifies me doing that to that person, right? That's the typical way that Lilith is shown. Because can that happen? Yes. Okay? I was justified in putting my consciousness here. I was justified because I was hurt first. Where's the connection with the divinity that you are? See how sad she is? She's not living a very fun life. Friends, I'm a little bit joking, but I'm talking about myself here. Like, I lived this life too, all right? I lived it in living color. It was not fun. It was pretty bad, okay? It felt so bad. And it took me years to realize that I couldn't feel this. Like I had to get so unhappy. Like so. Things had to be going so wrong in my life for me to finally realize not only am I not happy, but I can't even feel love. Like, actually, I can't feel it. And the day, you know, when I was sitting here going, not here, but in the past, I was sitting there going and telling myself, you know what, maybe we should go to Hawaii again so I could feel happy. When I'm in Hawaii, I feel happy. When I go, you know, when I go on vacation to wherever. If all of us just went on vacation, we would be happier, right? Somehow we would recover like from the horrible, you know, situation that is going on. And, you know, by God's grace, I had another thought. And that thought was, am I really happy when I go to Hawaii, go on vacation? Let me see. Actually, no. I can imagine myself holding a Mai Tai and like laughing. And I can imagine that lasting like a few minutes, that laughter. And then I would have to do it again to reignite the laughter, right? Or something. And then it hit me. I wasn't happy in Hawaii. I wasn't happy in another location. I wasn't happy where I was. And not only was I not happy, then, you know, thank you, God, I suddenly had this other idea, right? Because now my mind's cracking open, the open door, you know. And how did this happen for me? I literally prayed to Jesus and said, Jesus, you please help me. And when you intend and you intend and you intend and you intend and you ask and you mean it, then this kind of stuff happens. That's why I said you don't have to have, you know, consciousness isn't intellectual, right? How did I get that idea? Am I really happy? How did I get the idea? Okay, now see if you feel love. Do you feel love in Hawaii? When you're in Hawaii, is it not just happiness, but actually love in my heart? The times I felt love in my heart when I was in Hawaii was when I was communing with the Hawaiian energies, the energies of the earth there, the energies that are so alive there from nature, the energies of the ahuna, that you can literally feel them in the air around you, like in certain places. And so I realized, where did I even feel a little bit well? It was in the connection with divinity. And, you know, hence my desperate prayer, right? You know, for Jesus to, you got to help me, right? You got to help me. I forget exactly what I said, but it was private, right? Between me and God, between me and Jesus. So that was how I started to have the initiation. But once I asked, it's like he handed me off. I always had a golden angel that I worked with, like my, you know, guardian angel, if you will. I always saw this angel besides, you know, Jesus, you know, from childhood, these were the constant presences in my life. And, you know, he said, work with that. And what could you say that is? Your higher self, your angelic guidance, your spiritual guidance, the soul that you are, right? Okay, so let's go back to Lilith. All right, here I am, Lilith. Now, as Lilith, I've decided to take my consciousness off of the extremes and go back to my heart. What did that do? It led to me fully igniting that connection and having the path that we discussed earlier. Now, let me explain the rest of how this energy works. Do I want to do that now? Or do I want to do that later? I'm going to do it now. Okay, I got nobody knocking at my door, so here we go. All right, here she is. The focus of her consciousness is here, or the other extreme here. Notice I put it on the left and the right, okay? There's nobody who's all right or all wrong, all right? Whether your focus is one or the other, you know, Whether your focus is victim or oppressor, whether your focus is left or right, whether your focus is, good or darkness, whether your focus is, all the different ways duality can express. No one gets out of this, right? With like, there are, until we reach, I'm trying to figure out how to say this in words, until we reach a state of wholeness, we're subject to the full range of polarities. And these dynamics occur within us in the full range of polarities. So you can go to church on Sunday, come home, and then start bitching at people, right? Or you could go to church on Sunday, connect with God, and come home and be rageful about something. And look, is there the need to express our emotions, feel our anger, and all of that? Yes. I'm talking about when it becomes so intense that it becomes a whirlwind of energy in the field. And when it becomes a whirlwind of energy in the field, like a tornado, that's when it starts to compress and form into anger and depression and all these things. So what happened is Lilith is so pissed, okay? She's so pissed, and here's her focus right here. I circled this. She chose this side of duality. What happened? She walks out of the field. I'm not even me anymore. What happened to me? What happened to me? I'm not even me anymore, right? Yeah. So that's actually a great comment. Leave that in there because here's what happens. When she walks out, she leaves the field open. You called it. She leaves the field open. And then what happens? Okay, it's fine. Now she's got every entity, right, that she walks around and interacts with, filling up her field. And her hair's on fire. Look. Now she's not Lilith anymore. Who is she? Can you tell me? Put it in the comments. See if you can guess who she is now. Right? Because the archetype, she steps so far out of her own field. She's so possessed by entities. And now she acts from this all the time. See, there's not even a heart. She doesn't even remember that she had a connection with God. I'll tell you who she is. She's Medusa. She's no longer Lilith. She's the priestess that stepped away from the temple duties. She's the priestess that dishonored the sacred, whether that was thrust on her or due to her own choices. It doesn't matter, because that's the range of the polarities within duality. Lilith became Medusa, right? Oh, now we've got this archetype. Who does Medusa represent? Algol, the demon star. Here's your choice. There it is. Honey, how can I wash my hair when my hair is full of snakes? Right? Medusa is so angry. She's so distorted. She's no longer even fully human. Her hair is full of snakes. Now, she's another version of the dark feminine, of the dark goddesses, of the shadow of womanhood, of the shadow of what it is to be female or of femininity, right? Here's the other side. Vesta, the priestess in the temple, guarding the sacred flame, tending it so that it stays lit in the heart, the connection with the divine. Isn't that amazing? And It's all in here. All the stories, right? It's in the electromagnetic pie chart of what it is to be human, the 12 astrological signs, the 4 or more Schumann resonances. God, isn't that amazing? It's thrilling. Don't you love this? I do. I do. It's such an honor to be here with you. I'm so grateful that so many of you stayed. You know, thank you so much. You know, I just have so much love in my heart and gratitude for your presence here. You know, and to my channel members, you know, thank you for my membership people. And we're going to do another live stream next Sunday at 11:11, and that live stream will be for members only. Okay, so some of these concepts that I brought up today, I had gone in very deep on them in my last live on related concepts. In fact, the last live was a whole energy seminar and then a current energy update, but most of it was an energy seminar. Gosh, this is so exciting. Now, what I'd love to do is, if any of you have questions or comments, you know, you could put them below and I'll take a look. I'm gonna just take a look really quick here because it's the cell phone. So let me just see here. Yeah, you got it, Laurel. Medusa, you guessed, girl. I should have paid attention to mythology. You know what? It would have been, they didn't teach that in my high school. I don't know if they taught, I guess they must have taught it in yours, but we're here to relearn the old stories, you know, Saturn and Pisces. Okay. Aw, Angelica, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad that you had insights during this video about, you know, your pain. And just so you know, I wasn't talking about anybody that's on the live stream either. In case you've done sessions with me or worked with me or have communicated with me over Twitter or X, because all of that, you know, has happened. And so it's not about anyone in particular. I'm just recalling stories from, you know, when I was younger. Okay, now. Aw. Yes, you were born of love. You get a great shot of my forehead there. Hold on. Yes, Ren the snake. Now I want to say something about snakes, to be fair. You know, snakes are transformational, right? Snakes, some of them are poisonous. So snakes are an earth animal. There are entities that distort elementals, right? There are distorted energies from our perspective as humans that appear as elementals. Okay, I'm getting to tell a story about that. So I'm going to tell you a story about what happened this morning, actually. Oh, it was off the hook with this type of energy. So there are, you know, snakes. They're earth beings, and they teach us about transformation, transmuting poisons, you know, sensing the vibrations, you know, paying more attention to the earth and the ground, and really like perceiving, right? Perceiving. What do you perceive in the vibrations? How do you read the Schumann Resonance? That's another way of saying it, right? So let me tell you the story. Let me just see if there's any other comments really quick, and then, aw. Oh, okay. So thank you, Jennifer. Yes, I am blazing a trail. Denise, okay. Denise, I'm talking about astrology. And I'll address the other question. Humans belong to this realm. Yes, we do. We are greater than DEW. We are. Yes. See? Someone knows how to move hurricanes. Well, you do it with the divinity that you are. God moves a hurricane through you and with you as one, right? Because you are that in that moment. That's how it works. So I just, you know, on my X again, I have a post from an interview with a gentleman who's well known, and he goes into a lot of depth about astrology and the Bible. And it's so interesting because apparently, I knew about the quotes like where Jesus says to look at the star and the moon for signs, the sun, the moon, the stars for signs. But this man, I mean, he had very deep knowledge, and he talks about like a specific word that's referenced in scripture, and that wasn't translated. It was left in the original language. Well, it turns out, what he says is that word actually, when you interpret it, means the zodiac, the 12 signs, and it's specifically referring to the zodiac. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so when you understand that all forces and all that is of the Creator, then you make the conscious leap to understanding your resonance with these things, okay? That's the bottom line there. So I was guided to tell you this story right now, and then, we'll see what happens after that. Yeah, okay. It's about entity removal. Yeah, because some people, I want to present it in part because I just told the story of Lilith and how through this mechanism, people become possessed, okay? Or momentarily they are choosing to align with an energy that wouldn't normally be resonant with their soul, the soul that they are, okay? And then, as we said in the story of Lilith, when she finally steps out, then, the possession takes over. In the extreme, I would call this, schizophrenia, but only in a small percentage of the extreme of this, because I have worked with a couple of people who had that, and this is spiritual, okay? This isn't medical, so do not make any medical decisions off of anything that I say, because I'm not a doctor or trained medically. But spiritually, when the person decides to not only do this, but then put themselves in a box, that's when this takes over and the archetype evolves again. Yeah. So the recovery is always to make a new choice, right? But this can take a long time. It can take, for me, it took years and years and years of focus to recover my connection with the living soul that I am. Well, it really wasn't that long. It was, it started to happen right away. After I asked and asked and asked and was dedicated and changed my life to live, in alignment with divine principles as well as I could, it started to accelerate. Actually, it happened fairly quickly in the scheme of things. But each time you get the offer to choose again, where do I put my point of consciousness this time? Am I going to put it again at the edge of my field, or again, am I going to shift to love? Okay? Shift to love, meaning God's love for me at that time, because I couldn't even feel love. I was granted the spiritual gift of feeling the love of the Creator, though. And then I knew that, so I put my focus on that in my heart. All right, now let's talk about what happens when you have the entity in your field, okay, or some random energy in your field, or you are being constantly approached by entities and energy. I'm looking for my picture of this. And that is part of this. It's part of the reality, described by the Schumann pie chart or by the astrological pie chart. It's part of the reality that we live in. Okay. Of course, it's right in front of me. Okay. Either the entity is coming at you in your field, okay? And you don't know how to make it stop, or you perceive the entity in the field. So I'm going to give you a simple mechanism here to start, because it's a whole nother teaching to go through entity removal and cord disconnection. But this is how I recommend starting. that you focus here, okay? That you focus on your desire to connect with the soul that you are, the living soul that you are, okay? I focus on that. So this is why I created the series of meditation lives, because this is the first step. So the meditation lives, there's 7 of them in the playlist. Once you start doing this, okay, your reality will start shifting. So let's go back to the Schumann Resonance, and I'll explain it from that standpoint. Okay, so here is the pie chart of the 4 resonances. Okay, so this is a pie chart of human experience, equally allocated to the 4 resonances, resonance ranges, resonances, which are frequency ranges of the Schumann Resonance. Okay, that's this that I was doing before, except for now, same Schumann Resonance pie chart, but now we're going to make it specialized to a person who is having issues with, you know, some entity is approaching me, okay, or there's energy in my field even. Maybe it's in my field. How do I get it out? Well, the first step is to choose not to experience that, okay? So when I talked about wrapping smart meters with energy and setting the parameters and programming it, honey, you allowed this in. First, set the parameters that you no longer allow it. Remove the permission. That's number 1. And number 2, you know how we talked about, right, this, okay? So you focus on love. If you can't feel love, you focus on the Creator's love for you. If you can't feel that, focus on how you felt, you know, about your dog, or a past relationship in the positive where you actually felt love, or, you know, love from, you know, maybe you looked at the sunrise and you had this most amazing feeling of awe that came over you. I don't think bliss is helpful. I think awe, I think love, you know, I think bliss is something else. It activates other things. Okay. So when you bring that in, see, now I'm choosing my reality. I can choose, right? I can choose to swap these out. I can choose to swap them out. Yeah. And then what happens? I experience, like, let's say this is the red frequency range in the Schumann Resonance, right? It's a range of human experience that would be able to perceive some kind of negative energy. Let's call it the red resonance on the Schumann. Let's call it the, you know, lower astral realm. Let's call it something else, okay? But, you know, we have words that where we are trying to describe these things. So by shifting my focus of attention, okay, to the love, I'm making a conscious choice to change my reality. Hold on, let me make the next one. Okay, look, changing my reality. This guy's not happy now. He's really mad. Oops. Now the entity's not included. I shifted my focus of that resonance range. I made a conscious choice, right? I walked back into my field. I chose not to have this conscious focus. Instead, I chose, ta-da! No, yes, oh, okay. Well, now the heart activates. The heart activates. And I up-level my reality. The entity is gone. This is the broad construct. There are specific steps in the process. Okay, so, when you understand the broad construct and concepts, you understand that by making a new choice, you can shift your perceived reality. Why do the images on the Schumann Resonance tell a story over time, And there will be a quality of image. And quality is not a good word here. And the nature of the image, because the quality actually describes one of the data sets. So there'll be images with a certain nature on the Schumann Resonance that will suggest the entity, or they will suggest the love. They'll suggest this state, or they'll suggest a choice, or they'll suggest victory, right? Depends on what we are perceiving, the greater human consciousness. I feel that, yeah, the question that I'm musing on, I feel that I know the answer, but by musing on the question, as we expand consciousness as individuals, do we influence things like the Schumann Resonance more than humans that haven't done that? And my guess is yes. But that's what I feel is the answer. But that requires more observation, experiment for me to be sure about that. Because you have to be careful with those kind of points of view, because they can become exclusive very quickly, and then you've lowered your state of being and your consciousness. Boom. There are those tricks that happen. So let me just center myself here. Yeah. Oh, I didn't tell the story from this morning. Yeah. Okay. Well, on my next live, which is going to be with the private membership, what we'll do is we'll talk about entity removal, and I will specifically tell you the story of what happened, and it's pretty interesting because it's already 103 minutes that we've been going, and my guidance says not to do more right now because I have to prepare for something at 2. Okay, you guys. Well, all my love. Thank you for being here. I'm going to check the comments one more time. Well, you can go back and listen to the beginning. But this is a 18-month energy that these themes are really high relative to the solar eclipse, and a 2.5-year energy relative to Mars in conjuncting Uranus and then conjuncting Algol. But, the next 6 months are the real activation here, right? That's what the new moon in October told us. And, the lunar eclipse that occurred in September was like a cleanup phase. The lunar eclipse, so the next 3 months of this activation actually come with a lot of aggravation. And, I think it's just part of the flow because it helps activate us, right? The aggravation, sometimes we need, you know, a reason to change. And so the next 3 months, you know, I've talked about it elsewhere, but and on my lives. So I'm going to talk about that too for next time. And then we'll do a little grounding meditation and end. Let me. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, you know, follow along if you wish to do so. I'm going to describe a meditation here, and this is a quick, simple grounding meditation. Yeah, so you just breathe in. Isn't that beautiful? Now breathe in the heart. And if it helps, you can put your hand on your heart, if it helps you to focus there. And from the center of your heart, from the connection with the divinity that you are and the soul that you are, you just go straight to the center of the planet, to the center of the earth. Yes. And then breathe into the center. Yes. Isn't that wonderful? So your consciousness is in the heart. You bring your consciousness to the center of the earth. If you keep practicing this, you will be able to be conscious up here, sitting, or however you're doing this, and in the center of the earth. You'll be able to go from one point of consciousness. Right now, I'm here in the office, knowing that I'm also in the center of the earth. Now I switch, yes, now I'm in the center of the earth, knowing and seeing that I'm also in the office. So this human body, right, that I am from the center of the earth consciousness can perceive, I can perceive any information the human body may give me, like my eyes see what time it is, okay, I gotta end soon. My body might have an emotion. Maybe I hear someone outside, maybe it's joyful. My body might feel happy, okay, that feels good. Maybe someone accidentally comes in the door, like what happened on my last live, and I feel tension suddenly. And then my point of consciousness in the earth, the center, at the connection point of the earth with the creator, my consciousness says, okay, I felt the body have an emotion. Let me bring my point of consciousness back to the office and say, do I need to do anything? No, I'm okay. All right, I'm going to go back down. So I'm bringing energy back. Now I'm going to fully bring my attention back here, back to my body and my heart, and center and focus. Yes. And then I consciously end and close the connection that I had with the energy in the center of the earth. I still have a heart-to-heart resonance, the heart of the earth with the heart of my soul in my body, right? Because this is the earth as well. This body is the earth, right? It's made of the earth. It's made of stuff that was on the earth, and then it became this body, right? From a little baby, from a little seed, from a little light in mother's womb, you know? So that grounds us. We played a little bit and then bring the point of focus back here, back to the center of who you are. I hope that was a playful energy and also a grounding energy for you. So I'm still connected with the center of the earth if I choose, but I don't have to always be in that. I simply know, knowing is fifth dimensional, that I have a resonance with the heart of the earth, right? Because I'm a human, born on earth, organically born on earth. All right, you guys, have an amazing, super wonderful, lovely day. If you have any questions after this, you know, you've watched it or you've rewatched it and something occurs to you, just put a question in the comments and I'll be happy to check the comments and answer. And if you've sent me a message recently, I have responded to you. So I had a couple messages that I had to get back to. And with the hurricanes, I was ultra focused on that. And so that's done. Okay? Thank you. I have to figure this out here. Bye.